There's a number sitting in your phone right now that shouldn't exist. It comes from a man who never saw a computer, never touched electricity, and lived over 1,000 years ago. His name gave us the word algorithm. And that's not even his most famous invention. Somewhere between the fall of Rome and the rise of modern Europe, there's a gap. Historians call it the Dark Ages. Castles crumbling, books burning, knowledge disappearing into the mud. But here's the question nobody asks in school. Where did all that knowledge go? It didn't vanish. It moved. 1,300 years ago, a new power was rising. Not in Europe, but in the deserts of Arabia. Within a single century, it stretched from Spain to the edges of India. That kind of expansion should have meant chaos. Instead, it built the most advanced civilization on Earth. At the center of it all sat one city, Baghdad. And inside Baghdad, something almost unthinkable for its time. A library built not to hoard knowledge, but to hunt it down. Scholars were paid, sometimes in gold, equal to the weight of the books they translated, to chase down every surviving text from Greece, Persia, and India before it was lost forever. While European monks were copying scripture by candlelight, Baghdad's scholars were dissecting the human eye. A man named Ibn al-Haytham locked himself in a room, blocked out every source of light except one small hole, and watched an image form upside down on the wall. He had just discovered how vision itself works, the foundation of every camera ever built. Then there's the man behind that number in your phone. Al-Khwarizmi didn't just solve equations. He invented an entirely new way of thinking about problems, a system so powerful, Europe would later Latinize his name into a word we still use every single day, algorithm. The math he pioneered? They called it al-jabr. You know it as algebra. But this wasn't just about numbers. Surgeons in this era were performing operations on the brain. Chemists were transforming raw materials into medicine, laying down the roots of a word still spoken in every lab on Earth. Chemistry, from alchemia. And in the highlands of Ethiopia, a humble bean was discovered, then perfected in Arabian cities. Coffee, the fuel now running through half the offices in America. For 500 years, this was the center of the intellectual world. And then, in a single week in 1258, it ended. Mongol armies surrounded Baghdad. When the city fell, witnesses claimed the Tigris River ran black, not with blood, but with ink, from the thousands of books hurled into its waters. Centuries of human thought, drowned in an afternoon. It should have been the end of the story. But knowledge, once it escapes, is almost impossible to kill. By then, the ideas had already crossed into Spain, into Sicily, into the hands of European scholars hungry for what they'd lost. The Renaissance that Europe would later celebrate as its own awakening didn't start from nothing. It started from translated pages, smuggled ideas, and borrowed brilliance. So the next time you unlock your phone with an algorithm, solve for X in algebra, or reach for a cup of coffee, you're not just living in the modern world. You're holding a fragment of Baghdad that the river never got to take.